Hard to believe we're on a dying medium. Where do we start? I think I'm gonna uninstall YouTube soon. We'll see how far that gets me. This is a dying country.
In an extremely toxic environment, and someone's watching, like waiting to find out the exact level of insanity it takes before you go quiet. Stack.
I'm doing the same thing, aren't I? I gotta stop making these.
Yeah, they're able to play there's competition for access to capital. You can go to the Belt and Road Initiative, you can go to the Gulf Sovereign Wealth Funds, or you can go to the IMF model, and everyone knows what happens when you go to the IMF. You know,
humor me. What happens?
You end up with a dictator. You end up with the media destroying the reputation of your country, and that dictator is bribed to take the resources and send them back to Western countries for their consumption debt-based economy with no benefit to the population. And if you don't comply, you get assassinated. Or you get regime changed, or you get called a brutal dictator, Gaddafi. Like, we could go round and round. Saddam Hussein was a US ally. Then he tried to actually use his resources and price his currency in and price oil in a different currency. Now he's the enemy. Gaddafi tried to create a pan-African currency backed by gold. And that's when you need to be wiped out. That's when suddenly Assad, if he's not complying, needs to be given by MI6 chemical weapons so that we can manufacture a narrative and make it look like you were blowing up the chemical weapons. Like, the boot of the Western Empire is being lifted. So for many parts of the world, this is the best thing that ever happened to them.
So this is a guy who's a financial expert who owns a lot of Bitcoin. He used to be a journalist. But the reason he's no longer a journalist is, one, there's no money in it. Duh. Two, it's very dangerous. Three, it doesn't get you the freedom you want. Mama. It's okay, Georgie. Well, he's getting ready to attack her. Just like... I don't care. Anyway, guy owns a lot of Bitcoin. He explains what goes on in the Middle East because he's, been a journalist. He knows what's up. I don't like his conclusions about Bitcoin. Alternative currencies can be co-opted by governments, just like anything else. But his critique of the West and what's going on globally, pretty good. Some of the best you'll get. What he does is he kind of tracks the war through the financial end of things, and it all lines up. I mean, he literally just talked about how the conflict in the Middle East is basically just business as usual between countries. And that sounds about right. This racism that we're all experiencing just so our governments can experience their goals is pretty on brand, There is, as he says, a global transition happening. And he also says there's about 3 more years of war in the Middle East before the money's gone in Europe. About $1 trillion, he estimates. Once that happens, you'll begin to see real destabilization of Western countries, as he puts it. So, like Australia, UK, America, Canada. Be interesting to actually see, but nothing he said has been wrong. These biomatter furnaces that we're now installing inside of the Nazi internment camps here in the U.S. are made for people like me. And the reason why is because, well, West America has just lost its superpowerdom, and it's got to show its teeth somehow. So, yeah, if you weren't really convinced that this isn't a place you probably shouldn't be having kids, then you're a moron. So,
Like, this is their opportunity. This is multipolarity. This is competition. This is markets, not monopolies. Like, everything that America said it was, but then didn't do because Fick took over, is what the rest of the world wants to see happen. And they couldn't do it until there was competition to this Mick, Fick, and Tick construct.
Okay, so I mean, obviously wild. For people that are hearing this for the first time, it is, I think, for a lot of people, going to be very eye-opening. One thing that you said early is that you can exit the system, and you did, and for you that was Bitcoin. Why is Bitcoin the off-ramp? And for people that are like the populace, the masses, what is your advice for how to navigate this transition to an actual new world order? How do they do it well?
Yeah. I think the first thing to realize is to me, and people push back against this, and it creates a journey of people deciding whether they agree or disagree. There's no political solution in the West. There's no democracy. It's all a lie.
Just gonna replay that one. People need to listen up.
To me, and people push back against this, and it creates a journey of people deciding whether they agree or disagree. There's no political solution in the West. There's no democracy. It's all a lie. The lobby,
Yeah.
with the controls, and it's run by the government is a distraction. The left versus the right is a complete distraction.
Yeah.
It's designed to get you to buy into a system that will never fix itself, and you'll be eternally distracted forever. They put people like, the Thomas Massey comes along, and you get New Hope, and then the APAC lobby take it. You'll be eternally distracted in a paradigm. The manufactured civil unrest is a construct that's being deliberately done. They want Muslims to hate Jews, and Jews to hate Christians, and blacks to hate whites, and countries, China to hate America, religious tensions, racial tensions, political tensions, Democrats, Republicans. Divide and conquer was always the strategy. Now it's, and it's always been done on home as well, at home. So once you come to that realization that there is no political system, you realize that there's two types of people and a third type of person that they don't want. They don't mind you having freedom of speech and no money and deep in debt. You can whinge about the system. You can say what you want about Jeffrey Epstein. You can talk about how corrupt some of the trades are by Biden and Trump. Please don't think I got Trump derangement syndrome. If Biden was in charge, I'd be doing the same exercise. I have been doing it. I'm just doing it because Trump is here right now. So, that's another defense mechanism. They don't mind you having freedom of speech as long as you have no power and you're subordinate to the FIC. You can keep saying what you want. Nothing's going to happen. or they want you in the system. You know, that's where you are in their leverage networks, in their subordination structure, in access to debt capital markets, or a public company, or a VC funded business, or any of these things, or a public company. You know, then you can't talk. You have fiduciary duties to shareholders. You have subordination structures that mean your life can be impacted if you can't pay your debt. You know, they don't mind people being in the system because they know that you can't talk about it. You're just part of the theater. You're part of the WWE game. You can't say what you want because your power and your wealth depends upon it. And so they like people co-opted into the system. What they don't like is wealthy people with no debt, with a business that is not venture funded, that has assets that sit outside the system and are incredibly wealthy and can say whatever they want on a podcast. That's what they don't like. So those are very rare. And my mission was to work to see how many of those we could produce. And that's what drove me to Bitcoin. And so, you know, I realized that there is a way of storing value without a central bank, owning money without a bank, and spending it without government permission. Now I have to follow the law still in my country, so pick the right jurisdiction. They don't like people that those jurisdictions exist because people want to escape. And so for me, and it's a spectrum.
Okay, he might have me.
But becoming a more sovereign person, a more sovereign company, and using jurisdictional arbitrage is how you win the game. And the more people that do that, the more people that can use their wealth to co-opt the FIC, to buy the FIC, to build the decentralized technology that disrupts the TIC, and to create an environment where regional stability is better than destruction, which is the mixed model. And so right now you're watching new defense contracts being constructed everywhere because it's more profitable than destroying it. And why? Because the Gulf countries and China built enough wealth to co-opt the FIC and influence the system and get control mechanisms within it. So to me, there's two ways in which people can take this. So
George.
my local farmer, or is it helping some big conglomerate that is wiping out the farmers? Is my investment supporting a subordination structure, or is it supporting something that's more good? And so there's a couple of ways you can go about this. You can either say, I'm going to use the system for what it is, and I'm going to be that one person that's actually able to speak out against the system and do the difficult thing, which is speak against my vested interest. And there are wildcards. There are good people. There are people that do that. You know, read a book like Confessions of an Economic Hitman, and you can find people that were involved in these control constructs and wars and spoke out against it and went against their own interest. Or you can just exit the system, boycott it, and become a loud voice, and using your money in order to try and change the things that you can control. And what I've noticed is that I think the way we win is decentralized technology versus centralized technology, and decentralized communities versus centralized communities. If you look at all of this multipolar world, and probably this one global government between China and the big tech companies that we seem to be moving to, with AI and social credit scores and central bank digital currencies, global in nature, there will always be pockets of decentralized communities. And so it really comes down to, what is my relationship with myself? How am I with my family? And around my family are a bunch of neighbors. And at the end of the day, it's up to us. That's the thing that impacts us. Are they going to break supply chains with my farmers? Well, I better support my farmer. You know what I mean? Because I don't want them gone. And so it comes down to that. And I think that is the battle. It's the system is the system. I think nothing stops this train, and there's no political solution. AI is AI. There's nothing that's going to stop that. So you need to lean into it, build as much as you can in the system as it is today, and then be very conscious that your vote is your money on the micro level. And if more and more people do that, and by the way, once you realize that, you realize there is a way of breaking the system if we wanted, but they don't want you to know that.
What's the way?
Stop paying your mortgage and stop paying your rent on a global coordinated scale. The entire system breaks. And if you actually had coordinated unions of how to negotiate with power, but they don't want you to know that. They want you to think, all I need to do is find the next Thomas Massey. All I need to do is find the next politician. And you...
Exactly right. Make them think your problems are solved by
You will be
someone
bought
else.
into it. The longer you buy into it, the more you'll be distracted from it. And so if you want to break the macro system, that's how to do it. Because that's the whole system. The system is debt. And the system is those assets. And you're in those assets. If you want to break the system, that's how it's done. But if we don't want to break the system, then we need decentralized communities with sovereign people, with sovereign businesses, with sovereign money, using jurisdictional arbitrage, and playing the game as it is, because I think that there is a power structure that we can't change.
Fascinating and very clear. The reason that I got introduced to you was a mutual friend of ours told me that you have a hypothesis about who Satoshi is. So speaking of people that make a lot of noise, people that don't know, Satoshi is a pseudonym for the person that gave us Bitcoin. So one, by way of bona fides, you got into Bitcoin very, very early. But I'd be very curious to know who you think it is and why you would have been close enough to it to have a credible opinion.
I think a lot of people know who Satoshi is. So I was, when I left investment banking, I tried to create a fractional reserve bank. So I did try and change the system from within.
Wasn't it a non-fractional reserve bank?
Yeah. Did I say fractional reserve bank?
I think you did, yeah.
Okay, thank you for correcting that. Yeah. So look, I left the corporate in 2006, and I learned all these constructs from direct experience in different areas of the investment bank. I then left to try and think, okay, what's the political solution here? And I realized that all the politicians are controlled by lobbies and FIC. So then I said, well, can I just create an alternative bank? And so my wife and I tried to create an alternative bank in England. We got a meeting with the Bank of England, and they said, you got to deposit $60 million, pounds, to progress this plan. You're probably not the type of people we'd regulate, was the wording that they said. And you're going to have to build it on top of another bank, because we ain't giving you a banking license unless you build it on top of another bank. And so I realized you can't change the banking system. It's just more technology integrated into the same. It's very protected at the central banking level. Somebody invited me, and he said, I got a message on Facebook, a guy called Johnny Bitcoin in 2011, and said, hey, I've sold my house. I've moved into a squat in an area in London called Old Street. And there's a bunch of developers that are working on this open source project called Bitcoin. Why don't you come along and check it out? And so I went to that squat in London. I met one of the very first developers, a guy called Amir Taki. And he invited me to speak at the first Bitcoin conference. I wrote a book, which was the first published book in the world to include Bitcoin. I went all in investing in Bitcoin companies. So then companies couldn't get finance, but we ended up investing in Coinbase, Kraken, Bitfinex, Circle, Robinhood, Bitstamp, about 100 of the
Damn.
biggest companies in the sector. And I saw them all get subordinate to the FIC. Coinbase floated at $100 billion, completely subordinate to FIC. Like, you see them go through the structure. But at the roots of it, there was always the cypherpunk movement that this was. The ability to own your own money, spend your own money, and have a value that beats central banking debasement. I think the story of Satoshi is, I do think it actually came from intelligence.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, shit.
Yes. But something didn't go as it was meant to go. So if you look at the precursor to Bitcoin was DigiCash, which was created by David Chom. And David Chom wanted to create privacy transactions on top of banking. And he created the digital currency, but it was shut down because it was on top of banking infrastructure. At that time, he didn't go to prison.
At that time.
Mm-hmm. But he ended up a teacher at university in Netherlands. And for those that haven't figured out, university and college is another construct of FIC as well, to control education system and funnel money into alternative agendas and build the workers they need. Completely corrupted. And the two of his students was someone called Len Sassaman, and there was a company set up in Netherlands that also was connected to Hal Finney. Now today, both Len Sassaman and Hal Finney are dead. But I think that Satoshi Nakamoto, under the intelligence of David Chom, who were the one that wrote the white paper was Len Sassaman, is my opinion. And the first person that did the first Bitcoin transaction was Hal Finney. Now, if you look at the developer that they handed it over to, it was a guy called Gavin Andreessen. And you can see when Satoshi decided to leave the project, it was when Gavin Andreessen said, I'm going to make the CIA. We've got a meeting with the CIA and I'm going to tell them about how Bitcoin works. Satoshi left the project at that point. This was also around the time when Julian Assange wanted to use it for WikiLeaks, and we beat the financial blockade. And 1 month after that CIA meeting, Len Sassaman allegedly committed suicide. And a bit later, we were told that Hal Finney has a critical illness and is dead. And Len Sassaman meets all of the credentials and the time zone and all the different...
Bro, leave this country. Leave.
Things. He did have social media posts where he was kind of saying, yeah, I'm not sure about Bitcoin and that type of stuff. But I think what Len Sassaman did was not what he was meant to do. He open sourced the project. I don't think it was meant to be open source. I think this was meant to be a gateway drug for what we're having today, central bank digital currencies. And I've traced the entire history of Epstein's interaction with different developers and compromised networks that he tried to infiltrate with Peter Thiel in 2011 and beyond.
To try to pull Bitcoin back into the fold?
Yes. Yeah. There were many ops, and I would almost like to do a whole podcast on those different ops in Bitcoin because I was there and I saw them all. And I saw what Brock Pierce tried to do.
What did Brock Pierce try to do?
Well, Brock Pierce, I think, was Epstein's guy in the digital currency space. And he tried to persuade me that Satoshi Nakamoto was Dr. Craig Wright, who's the guy that recently got a year in prison, and I think, not sure if you heard it, for pretending to be Satoshi. And he ended up being an essential part of creating an alternative version of Bitcoin. Brock Pierce also was the co-founder of a stablecoin called Tether. And Tether was later sold to a company called Bitfinex that I had invested in. That stablecoin Tether was the gateway drug for central bank digital currencies. And when Bitcoin went open source, there were several attempts to create alternative versions and fork it off and confuse the community into going to a more centralized version of Bitcoin called Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin Satoshi's vision. And I can trace back all the conversations, and the developer that had all the credibility, Satoshi handed the key, the development over to Gavin Andreessen. It was Gavin Andreessen that met with Dr. Craig Wright and said, this guy's cryptographically proven to me that he is Satoshi. And that was a lie. He hadn't. I can go through all the different people that led to these crypto market and VC funding. The crypto market, the stablecoin market, the central bank digital currency market is all a psyop. Venture capital funded, complete wealth extraction vehicle, complete degenerate gambling, ushering in a vital key by David Sachs, who was introducing stablecoin policies and Genius Act and all the programmable money that turns stablecoins into programmable police and surveillance grids in the Bank Secrecy Act and Genius Act and Patriot Act and Clarity Act now. They want you doing everything but using Bitcoin. And there were several operations, Operation Choke Point 2.0, various other things, which we could go through all of them in a different time if this is interesting. There's too much to cover. To take us to the stablecoin alternative crypto gambling world. But Bitcoin in self-custody still exists where there's 25,000 nodes. There's a distributed supercomputer. In fact, interestingly, Iran is the largest sovereign Bitcoin miner in the world, powered by nuclear energy, which was always what this was about. It was never a nuclear weapon. It was always nuclear energy. Everything's about energy. And we're resetting the world based upon energy right now. And what are they trying to do? They're trying to get you to own Bitcoin in a treasury company with Michael Saylor. They're trying to get you to own Bitcoin with BlackRock in an ETF. They're trying to get you to borrow against your Bitcoin through Cantor Fitzgerald and Howard Lutnick connected to the Epstein network. They're trying to get you to not own Bitcoin, to own crypto, to use stable coins, to use central bank digital currencies, to put it in a Wall Street wrapper, to put it in a debt wrapper, because the last thing they want is for you to own Bitcoin in self-custody. And in the end, you realize that all of this shit around it is just like it's to distract you around from the thing that actually makes a difference, that makes you sovereign, that allows you to escape the system, and has created a generation of incredibly wealthy people that were able to remain sovereign. But I think Satoshi Nakamoto was Len Sassaman.
There it is. Simon Dixon, god damn. Like this.
Doesn't matter what he's feeling. What matters is what goes down in the history books. Just ask the Indians.